And I'm gonna get to why I think this is like one of the best kept secrets about working in Japan. You may not be able to make as much money as someone could in the US, but one of the pros, and I will argue one of the hidden earning potentials of living in Japan is that, so with the massive amount of layoffs that are happening in the US, it got me thinking about the differences between Japanese and American working culture. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Terrence Reynolds. I've been living in Japan for almost a decade now, 9 years to be exact. And I've had most of my formal working experience here in Japan. Now, I did have one job in the US, if you would even call it a job. I had my own small business, my own LLC, doing freelance design work for people, but I've actually never formally held a corporate job in the US. Still, I wanted to make this video to give perspective for all my American listeners and to anybody else who would like to know what it's like to live and work in Japan compared to their home country, and more specifically for this video, the US. Now, the US is a little bit different. I remember graduating school along with my peers, and when we were beginning looking for the job, it was a very informal process. We're going to get back to that later. This informal process kind of looked like you relying on your network that you may have built while you were in college, whether you did internships or not, you working through your school to find employment, or you just going the traditional job searching route. This is different from the Japanese experience. You see, when you graduate school in Japan, what usually happens is this. There's this formalized hiring ritual, I guess that's what you would call it, where all the students at the exact same time apply for jobs. If you ever come to Tokyo, especially during the springtime, you would definitely see this. All of them are wearing the exact same black and white uniform. You cannot wear anything else. And they apply for job after job after job. And what's so special about this sort of system is that the jobs that you apply for can have nothing to do with your degree, and they can still hire you. Unlike the US, can you imagine that? Can you imagine if you had an art major applying for a software engineer job? Well, that's expected in a place like Japan, because in Japan, what generally happens is this. When you apply for a company that first year, maybe even longer, they expect to just invest in you and train you. In the US, it's a little bit different. We do internships after internships because they expect us to be capable of doing the job right when it happens. Maybe they might onboard us for a couple of months, but it's a sink or swim culture. And this is what's interesting about Japan compared to the US. That art major who would get hired for a software engineering job, of course, they would not get a high salary. In fact, even if you had a software engineer apply for a software engineer job, it is typical in Japan for them not to give you a high salary. I think the starting salary for most graduates are around $30,000 a year. And in some companies, it may even pay for your housing as an added benefit. In the US, is a little bit different. That same software engineer can possibly make $100K a year, but the expectations is much different for that person. And it made me start thinking about the different models of employment and how society treats labor. In Japan, your pay start off low, but the company is loyal to you. They'll invest heavily into you and help you reskill and train yourself higher and higher. But and maybe this is due to traditional Japanese culture. Back in the day after World War II, it was typical for someone who get employed at a Japanese company to be hired there and work there for life. In exchange for this lifetime employment, a company would promise to take care of you, be there for you if someone were to die or you were to get married. I won't say that you're treated like a family member, but there's an expected sense of loyalty that Japanese companies have developed over time, and the laws are reflecting that. I'm gonna get back to that point later. For Japanese companies, they'll give you loyalty in exchange for your servitude. But one of the downsides of this sort of system is that, like I said before, the pay is lower. But in addition to that, there's this senpai culture that happens here in Japan too, meaning that if you're younger and you can be more competent than your older employee, that older employee will still most likely outrank you simply because that's the way things have been done traditionally. Maybe this is changing over time in a new age, but this is how Japanese culture tends to run. Whereas in the US has a system where it really rewards people who are innovative and like top performers. But this is where the beauty and the curse of working in the US lies. The US is a great place if you're a top performer. You can expect to earn hundreds, if not even $1 million working at certain companies as a software engineer. Think of the top performers at Netflix or Nvidia right now, with the stock market soaring like crazy. That's not going to happen here in Japan. Japan's a pretty modest income, but you're granted safety in exchange. In the US, as we're seeing right now, there are tons of layoffs happening. I've known people who are amazing at their jobs who lost their jobs because their department got canned or the company went in a different direction. This sort of thing cannot happen in Japan, and this is one of the most beautiful things I find in Japan. And I'm gonna get to why I think this is like one of the best kept secrets about working in Japan, which is this. No matter what happens to a company, assuming the company isn't about to die and just lose money completely, A company cannot lay you off. In fact, a company cannot fire you in Japan. And this is an amazing system if you're an employee, because no matter if your company deems your performance is lower, a company cannot just simply lay you off, nor they can fire you. I mean, there's still methods for them to fire you, but it's extremely difficult. They basically have to go to court and prove that you are 100% being negligent at your job, and not just incompetent, like purposefully negligent at your job. And that bar to prove that is incredibly difficult to do. It is actually common here in Japan for a company, if they want to get rid of you, if they want to lay you off rather, to pay for you to leave. Because again, it's a two-party layoff system, which is completely different in the US. Imagine if you can agree to be laid off right now. There's a lot of tech employees in the US who are thinking like, man, what if I can just say no to a layoff? That'll never happen. But in Japan, you can absolutely do that. So what is common to me in these cases, and I've heard stories of my friends and fellow former coworkers being offered a year's worth of salary to leave their position because a company simply can't get rid of you. Even if they were to defunct your role, they'll be forced to either move you to a different department, retrain you, or find something else for you to do, or even keep the role entirely. And that's one of the best things about living in Japan and this culture that you see. Because a lot of people give Japan flack for their culture. They talk about these long, extraneous working hours. I've never really had that experience. Here in Japan, I typically work about 7.5 hours a day. I have done some overtime in the past, but I gotta be honest, it was never at the pressure of any manager. I chose to work overtime because I felt like I wanted to perform high, but I never needed to do it. And now, yes, do I earn as much as my US counterparts, especially considering how weak the yen is? No, but I am pretty lucky because I work for an American company in Japan, so I earn nearly a comparable American salary as a software engineer, but I get to live in Japan where the cost of living is lower and my job is protected. So when I look at what's happening in the tech industry right now, with these layoffs and people losing their jobs left and right due to AI or companies simply changing directions, I feel like as someone in this industry, I'm in the comfort of a country that's able to take care of me and protect me. And I can watch from like, I guess, 10,000 miles away what has happened to our industry in real time and be able to make an educated decision of what do I want to do next, whether it's continue being a software engineer or getting out of this industry entirely. I am protected because my job simply cannot lay me off unless I do something absolutely insane and they can prove in the court. Now, when I think about the US, of course, like I said, you can get fired in the US at any time. Companies rely on this because it can cut costs, it can take the company completely in a different direction. And as a result, the US is a very innovative place. Japan is very stagnant. Japan is a place where companies come to just maintain things. And the US is a place where things are being destroyed and recreated all the time. This creative chaos or this creative destruction led to some of the best innovations that we've ever seen. There's no surprise that Netflix, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Microsoft, Apple all happen in the US, and you can't name a major Japanese tech company post 2000s because that's not the place for this. But in a world where AI is rapidly changing things, I want to ask you this if you're watching this video. Do you want to live in a society that see you as churn, that see you as like yesterday's clothing and just throw you out and replace you? Or do you want to live in a country where things happen slower? You see, in Japan, they tell you that change happens every 18 years. And I used to think that Japan is slow. I mean, this is the country, believe it or not, that still uses fax machines. But because of this slowness, there's a sense of societal stability and security and safety and protection as well. The point that I'm trying to make is that I wonder, what is the purpose of society and how does that intersect with our careers as young adults or even like people who are midway through their career when it comes to our jobs, especially in the US, where we can just be replaced at any given time when a company whim. Even if the company isn't losing money, they can just get rid of us. Whereas Japan, companies are seen as an integral part of society. And the relationship between that company and that employee is something that has to remain secure in order to protect the social cohesion that exists in Japan. You see, Japan is a collectivist society, and it's crazy to believe that corporations are actually required to adopt that collectivist mindset. Whereas in the US, it is hyper individualistic. If you are looking to be a top performer, there's no other place in the world but the US to go to. But the downside is that companies also adopt that individualism as well. Companies want to be the absolute best and crush you in the US, and they're willing to crush you in order to make that happen. But if you are that top 1% or that top 10% performer, you probably have nothing to worry about when it comes to this AI stuff. But I wonder which one is better. And I want you guys to let me know in the comment section. Is it better for just a small pool of people to win in the long run? And yes, one of the pros of this is that you have a society that continuously innovate, but one of the downsides of this is that destruction happens pretty often. People lose their jobs. There's this constant anxiety of like, could this be my last paycheck at my company? And I do believe that this anxiety and this individualism that happens is also probably the reason why crime is rising in the US as well, because people feel insecure and have to turn to other means in order to make money. Whereas in Japan, it's a little bit different. You may not be able to make as much money as someone could in the US, but one of the pros, and I will argue one of the hidden earning potentials of living in Japan, is that you never have to worry about your security or safety for the most part. I live in Japan and my healthcare is covered. I make a decent amount of money, especially at the company that I work at, and I never have to worry about being laid off. And that's one of the most magical things that I think Japan has to offer. And now that I think about it, one of the best things about living in Japan, especially if you're approaching your career from a non-traditional standpoint, meaning that you want to be a creator or you want to start your own business, I think Japan is actually one of the best places to start a business if you are an individual looking to have your own small business. I mean, really think about it. You work for a company that can't lay you off. That means that you can still have your side hustle, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, or doing whatever you need to do on the side, contract work, or starting up your own business while still having that secure employment. In the US, that's a risky thing to do. If you were to start your own business, spend that monthly savings of yours and dwindle that down, you could be laid off at any moment. That could put an abrupt stop into what you're able to do and your potentiality. In Japan, I think this is one of the secret hacks that I feel like more people should know about. If you ever wanted to move to Tokyo, as an example, become a software engineer, but you also wanted to build your own things, maybe consider doing it here in Japan, because the fact that you have secure employment while you're able to incubate and grow an idea is one of the best things if you want to take risk in life. And that is surprising coming from a country and a culture that don't really advocate for risk. Whereas in the US, it's go big or go home, and many people will go home. I don't know. This has just been my thoughts about the differences between the Japan and the American working culture. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.